Alrighty, another day, another me talking at the microphone, screaming mildly into the void, and maybe somebody listening. Or you listening, or maybe the dog listening. Dog, are you listening? No, dog's not listening. Well, at least some of us are. A quick thank you to the T5 peeps, Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, DuckMachine, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Feudic Jarl, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you very much. Anyways, on to the story. Why did it have to be a human? Part 4. When humanity first took to the stars, they were met with animosity, xenophobia, and apprehension. Having suffered several wars and near extinction on their home planet, they were considered dangerous, reckless, and too inexperienced for the galactic community. Thus, time and time again, they were pushed aside. If they were lucky, they were ignored. But sometimes, someone wanted to make an example out of them. Humanity had managed to build a sizable off-world set of space colonies on the star system of Sirius, which numbered 1 million individuals. Then the Kuya, the octopus-like species, decided to prove their superiority by attacking the colony. It was a complete victory over the space habitats. No humans survived the attack. After that, for over a dozen standard cycles, about 25 years human standard sole reference, the humans stayed on their star system. They were approached by a single species, small, bear-like, and with distinct bovine features, albeit covered in curls of fun. The hooved and bipedal taxon became humanity's only friends. Humans called them fuzzy bear cows, because they resembled a children's toy called a teddy, crossed with a young Highland cow-calf. To most humans, the taxon were about as tall as their hips, most humans being 5 foot and 6 inches. Despite, or perhaps even because of their differences, humans and taxon got along rather well. Taxon do not believe in violence and abhor killing to the point that they would rather die than cause harm to others. However, that being said, taxon are capable of revenge. Their culture demands it, but they are not allowed to carry it out themselves. When they heard that the humans had been wrong, a decision was reached after careful deliberation. A fleet of ships was built for the humans, but not armed, because, well, this loophole in galactic inquisitors did not make a fuss about it. Also, to name the ships, that was a stretch of the definition. They were little more than a large piece of ice about 20 kilometers long with an engine attached, but they did number in the hundreds. And the idea had been uniquely human in nature. No one else had even conceived of such a dark purpose. One faithful cycle, a poor Kuya woke up to go to work, but before they could get dressed, the world had ended, and they were nothing but ash, as great impacts hammered their world and hundreds of other worlds like it. Such a moment became known as humanity's vengeance, disproportionate and beyond words. The Koya species was reduced to cinders in the blink of an eye, only a few colonies still remaining, and the one word now forbidden in their language is human, for it meant words of wronging at the visited death upon their fear. No Koya can see a human without bowing in hatred and cowardice, and no human can see a Koya without remorse and sincere sadness. Thus, in the poetic language, the taxon called humans a fireball from the heavens river. It should then come as no surprise that humans are fond of taxon. Most describe the little ones to smell like cinnamon or fresh apples. Humans tend to be happier with them around, and taxon find safety and the security with humans. But not all are covered by this umbrella, and many injustices still happen in the universe at large. However, when the taxon in the cargo held A saw a human at the door, they rejoiced. Entering the airlock, Ithilia counted her blessings. Bones of the ancestors, we made it. A very few crew members still with her rejoiced and relaxed, leaving behind the nightmare. They gotten back inside the safety of their ship in the sepulchral tone, all systems intact, everything in place. She had been carried to the med bay for her injuries to be tended to. Not that she wanted, but a good leader knew when to throw in the towel. And that mythical beast called humanity. Could it even be stopped? If the galactic governments were not a collection of bickering factions, they would have voted for the complete eradication of the species and their accursed planet. But no, frozen by fear that allowed them to spread, banning the use of FTL WMDs under the penalty which they were too afraid to dish out to the sole species capable and guilty of wholesale genocide in the last 100,000 cycles. Primarch, we have a problem. The young soldier standing next to Perilia's bed seemed drained of life. His scales were a sickly lime green, and he had a crude, blood-stained bandage over his right eye. She waved to him to go on with the report. With a moment's hesitation, the young fighter continued. We are locked down to the primary and secondary computer systems, and the bridge is currently under bunker protocol. Apologetically, as if trying to offer a quick solution, lest his neck be on the line as he followed that by saying, but we are trying to cut our way in and have begun swapping systems to the emergency computer. This was not good news, and she knew why. I assume that we have access to the basic system, right? She asked tentatively, and she received a nod. I don't care how, send a message to Taxon that we need the prince alive or we're all dead. The bastard had set the ship to obey him, a sign of complete mistrust. But that was par for the course. His caste never truly trusted anyone. In his eyes, all were bidding to take his seat. Even in his sun, he could find imaginary shadows. In shock, the 4th and 8th squad simply stood there witnessing a human for the first time, and quite possibly the last time of their life. The Maker shouted at them to open fire, to fire everything that they had. Snapping out of it and hearing the orders, Hulip and the leader of the 4th squad, 3rd son of the house married, aimed and fired the very first shot. The Mezec, excited, hummed at a 50 gigahertz, and in the infinitely small moment that 2 milliseconds spanned, it was ready to fire. The computer on the rifle had communicated with the exosuit and asked a series of important questions. Hey, this is Mil-Spec J32, dual variant rifle, authentication blue volcano tone 68 red. How are you doing there, ACE? Reading you, J32, automated combat expediter here. I'm doing good. Well, apart from server 17 on the right hip, it's ticking a bit. How are things up there in the exciting world of combat? I heard from the biomonitor that the user is a bit afraid. Well, Ace, I'm currently trying to burn a hole on a target and need you to give me a full kickback suppression. It's for a max power Mezec shot. Max power? What are you trying to do? Skewer 10 Taxon in a row? If so, I want pictures. Listen, I'd love to continue this conversation later, but this is serious. The target is a human. Well, fuck. Marcus could not believe his eyes. The demon had punched Hulip square in the chest, and its arm had gone all the way through his back. It raised Hulip up like a toy and tossed the now limp corpse of Bolson, who feigned being dead on the spot. Barely aware of the Taxon, Marcus still noticed that they were coming out of the drugged stupor, and even though they were not of particular concern, he could easily kick them all to death. In fact, he decided that would be exactly what he would be doing once the demon was dead. This made himself feel a lot better. But the words they were chanting was now unmistakable. I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and for thy possession the ends of the earth. What meaningless prattle was this? His translator was not able to understand this ridiculous so-called poetry. Instead, he focused on the beast, only to see one of his soldiers receive a backhand slap that made a disgusting cracking sound, and the soldier fell to the deck, now dead. The Taxon continued, Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces, like a potter's vessel. The monster paused as if taking heed of the words. It raised its blade, black steel, gleaming, with which it decapitated the last remaining member of the 4th squad. Marcos was stunned into inaction, missing the next few words of the Taxon, only focused upon the carnage that he was witnessing. With the last of the 4th squad down, the 8th squad opened fire without reservation, Mezec and micro darts flying to where the unspeakable horror stood. Realizing that no one could survive that, Marcus came to his senses and caught the last part of what the Taxon were chanting. Ye perish in the way, though his wrath be kindled but little. Then his ears picked up the impossible sounds of thunderous steps moving towards them. Death had come. Humans were not the strongest, nor the fastest, and certainly not the smartest species of the universe. Yet some said that they were the most willing to go to extremes, and were able to adapt in infinite ways. Jason was a product of 200 years of adapting and improving technology, the pinnacle of human engineering. Genetically designed for a single purpose of being an apex on the battlefield, surgically altered in key ways to give him an edge over robotic killers that were relentless, and given armor that could take just about anything thrown his way. 3 inches of reinforced titanium nanoplast carbon formed the outer shell of his armor, with an inside weave of Duraplex and micro-diamond fiber composites suspended in a liquid layer. Responsive to impacts and breaches, not to mention the latest energy projection screens with an absorbing maser sinks. In short, he could take quite a lot of fire that he was being peppered with before the sinks were full, and the screens started to burn capacitors. Even if the maser somehow made it past that, the armor itself was rated up to 6 shots on the same area before it melted a hole in it. The damn lizards were persistent. He had to give them that, but that didn't mean that there were going to be a problem. There were 7 left in the room, one big angry one at the back being shielded by 2 equally ugly bastards and the 4 idiots that were currently shooting at him. So with a charge, he flew into the formation, crushing one of them instantly, cutting the one to the right in half with one fell swoop of his blade. Meanwhile, the other 2 had not been idle and had managed to stick 2 grenades on Jason's side. With 2 violent bursts, their explosions threw him to the deck. Alarms began raising in his system about sensor overheat and possible breach. The bastards had used ship-cutting mines, not anti-personnel grenades. In a flash, at a speed only a human was capable of, before being incapacitated, he threw the blade like a javelin, impaling one of them to the bulkhead. As he fell, he saw the other had turned around to look at the now dead companion. Jason managed to get up, and he immediately felt shots coming from behind. The big angry bastard was shooting at him. He would deal with the annoyance in a second. First, his armor reported that Jason would need a new spleen, kidney, pancreas, and that his left lung was filling up with fluid. So the system was disconnecting it. The breach was sealed with expanding foam, which had hardened in seconds it took him to get to his senses. He ran at the distracted idiot that was shocked at seeing his friend impaled, and was almost no effort ripped off his head. Now the other lizards were all really desperate. The Taxon were chanting the little ones loved poetry and songs far too much, but it was common language that humans had with them. The words, as far as their long tongues could make the sounds, were in joy and anger. Mijn son nurmut, vergot getrouwd, boutgat. Jason pulled up the lyrics. The little guys loved it when the humans joined in. With a swift pull, he retrieved the blade that stuck in the bulkhead and allowed the other corpse to fall onto the deck. Inst unser ant unser dat sick. He again threw it, and with all the might. This time he skewered one of the bodyguards, but did not manage to kill it outright. The other 2, however, were treated to a splash of blood and guts. The Taxon responded in a joyous chorus, An unser der Sieg. Marcos could not believe how much abuse the demon had taken and dealt in such little time. And now he was covered in the remains of Jaxa, his most trusted commander. Marcus trembled. How could he escape? If he was fast enough, there was one way. It would mean having to sacrifice the only soldier he had left, but that was a small price to pay to live. He was a prince. He had to live. All others existed for him. They would have no meaning without him. Once again, he looked upon the cursed visage of the demon. Of all taxed ships, why did it have to be a human? End of chapter.
And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.